In the 1950s, the world became familiar with the military helicopter as a machine of mercy, an airborne ambulance that would whisk injured men from Korean battle zones to hospitals. A decade later, American fighting men returned to Asia, this time facing a much different type of war. Vietnam was a guerrilla war. The enemy would strike and then disappear. There was little doubt that the Army needed a faster mode of transportation to keep up with the enemy. Enter the Bell HU-1 Iroquois, fondly known as the Huey. This was no airborne ambulance, this was a fighting machine. Those that weren't used as troop transports were modified with 30-inch machine guns and rockets to escort the unarmed troop ships in and out of battle. The development of these helicopter gunships changed the nature of close air support. Helicopters were highly maneuverable, speedy, and could get down and dirty with the ground troops in a way that jets could not. The First Army Huey was the root of the American combat helicopter family tree. While one branch spawned an entire family of helos built specifically for transporting troops and supplies, another branch gave birth to the Cobra, the first pure attack helicopter. A worthy successor to its early gunship ancestors, the Cobra nonetheless had its Achilles heel.
With the Cobra, it had its primary anti-armor weapon was the tow missile, and it only had a range of 3,750 meters. That means in order to shoot a tank, you're getting close to being inside the tank's main gun round range.
The Army began looking ahead to the next generation of attack helicopters, and by 1975 they had two candidates. Bell Helicopters, the creator of the Huey Cobra, pitted its prototype AH-63 against the AH-64, made by rival manufacturer Hughes. After 850 hours of rigorous flight and ground trials, the Hughes AH-64 Apache emerged as the winner. 7 years of modification followed, including the acquisition of Hughes helicopter by aviation giant McDonnell Douglas. The first Apaches were delivered to the Army in early 1984. The Apache was easily the most formidable attack helicopter the world had ever seen. Imbued with all of the elusive, aggressive traits of its namesake tribe, the Apache was built to provide fire support to units in the field and to take out high-priority targets. More specifically, it was built to kill tanks. The Apache is a menacing aircraft, even stripped of its weaponry. In flight, it looks like the world's deadliest dragonfly. Its rugged exterior mirrors its durability.
Everything in this aircraft is designed to crash. If you were to get shot down or something like that, it's designed to if it crashes, it's designed for the crew to live. The 30 millimeter, it will jam up in between the front seat and the back seat. There's an actual space there for it to crush up into. The struts are designed to take a heck of a hard landing, and they're designed to crush all the way up, so the wheels would be up level with the pilot's head.
Armor made of boron carbide bonded to Kevlar shields the Apache crew and the helicopter's vital systems. The protective layer surrounding the airframe and the crew seats can withstand the most small and medium anti-aircraft artillery. The blast shield between the two crew members guarantees that no single round will kill both pilots. Even the gas tanks on the Apache have their own defensive capability.
Basically what happens if a projectile goes through the fuel tank there, there's a gel in there. When it mixes with JP fuel, it forms like a big glue, if you want to call it a glue, and it'll seal the hole. It'll basically seal the hole.
The muscle of the machine, twin General Electric engines, is shoulder-mounted on the fuselage behind the main rotor mast. The engines are physically separated and run independently, So if one takes a hit, the other can keep the Apache flying. The Apache's main rotor has 4 blades made up of stainless steel spars and glass fiber tubes. The blades can slice through tree branches up to 2 inches in diameter and can survive 50 caliber machine gun rounds and shell strikes. With a top speed of close to 200 miles an hour, some pilots liken flying an Apache to driving an expensive sports car. Its controls are incredibly responsive to a pilot's every command. But speed, durability, and maneuverability alone are not enough. An Apache without firepower is like a gun without a bullet. The Army designed the Apache as a platform for a new generation of weapons. One is the laser-guided Hellfire air-to-ground missile. The Hellfire can pierce the armor of any known battle tank from more than 3.5 miles away.
What it does basically is we designate targets on the battlefield with our laser, with a coded laser. The missile, before it leaves the rail, knows our laser code. When we squeeze the missile off, it finds a laser beam, it rides, so to speak, that laser beam to the target.
At $40,000 a missile, Hellfires are ounce per ounce more expensive than gold. The Apache can carry up to 16 Hellfires on its outboard rails, though a load of 8 is more typical. The accuracy and effectiveness of the weapon is unquestionable. The Hellfire is the premier anti-tank missile in the Army's inventory. It's what the military calls a standoff weapon. It inflicts maximum damage from a maximum distance. But when you're close enough to the enemy for a bare-knuckled brawl, hanging tight below the cockpit, the chain gun packs 1,200 rounds of 30mm punch. 2 stub wings on either side of the Apache carry Hydra rockets. The 2.75-inch folding fin rockets can be armed with a wide variety of warheads.
We can use multiple purpose submunitions, which each rocket will carry 9 submunitions, and they burst in the air and they fall down and they'll cover a large area with small explosions. It's kind of a poor man's cluster bomb.
The Apache can launch its 38 rockets in a variety of combinations or all at once. That's a feeling pilots can only describe as a real rush.
Not only do you feel it, you smell it. You smell the cordite as the 38 rockets leave the aircraft and the smoke that it leaves behind.
Strapping into an Apache is like climbing down into an Indy car. Not an inch of space is wasted in its sleek interior. The 2 crew members sit in tandem, with the pilot occupying the rear seat. His perch is more than a foot higher than the gunner's, providing a clear field of vision. While tasks are divided between the crew members, both are fully qualified pilots and both know how to operate the aircraft's weapons systems. Stowed under the gunner's seat is a full set of flight controls, but unless there's an emergency, he's focused on acquiring and destroying targets. Not long ago, helicopter crews were virtually grounded once the sun went down. The surest way to wrap your helo around a tree was to fly at night. But for Apache pilots, nightfall is when the fun begins. As they slip on their high-tech helmets, another world emerges, a world where night becomes day.
Well, it was designed to fight and fly at night with an infrared system, and the pilots fly off a HDU. It's a little reticle that comes down over your eye. You can fight, fire, fly, all through that little TV screen.
There's a lot of information jammed into that little television screen. The pilot sees an infrared image that allows low-level map of the Earth flight, along with symbols that tell him how high and how fast he's flying. Maneuvering with one eye takes some practice. It's a skill pilots say that if you don't use, you lose. The helmet is connected by wires to the aircraft's weapons control system. Either crew member has the option of slaving the 30mm cannon to his helmet, so the gun automatically points wherever he looks.
It basically does a little trigonometry. It knows how high the helicopter is, what the look-down angle of your head is, and it does a little trigonometry and it figures out the range. If we were in a battle position and the front seater is engaging targets looking a long ways away, the back seater is worried about what's happening around him. So the back seater could have control of the gun slaved to his helmet. He could be looking to see if there's any bad guys around him and just suppression and keep them away while we're concentrating on what's going on downrange.
Because the Apache is a sexy, state-of-the-art machine, competition to fly it is fierce. Only the strong of mind, body, and spirit need apply. Potential pilots go through 9 months of basic flight school, and only then can request Apache duty. If selected, they undergo an additional 3 months of intense training. They log countless hours of flight time in simulators. The simulators are virtual reality that is virtually real. Pilots respond to one computer crisis after another to test their performance under pressure. While nothing can take the place of actual flight, the time spent here pays big dividends when the student straps on his first Apache. Once they graduate from flight school, pilots report to their operational units, but their schooling is never really finished. Skills need to be constantly fine-tuned, so the Apache pilot is totally prepared for the inevitable battle that lies ahead. The Apache received its trial by fire in December of 1989 during Operation Just Cause, the American invasion of Panama. A handful of Apaches, flying mostly at night, helped oust Panamanian strongman General Manuel Noriega from power. But the world would wait several more years before it heard the full battle cry of the Apache.
The liberation of Kuwait has begun.
January 17, 1992. A pre-dawn blitz over Baghdad marked the beginning of the Gulf War. It is a little-known fact that the very first strikes of the war were not delivered by stealth bombers or even cruise missiles. Rather, it was a task force of Apaches that drew first blood. In less than 2 minutes, Apache gunships took out 2 Iraqi radar sites. Hellfire missiles blew a 10-kilometer-wide hole in the Iraqi anti-aircraft defense network, allowing Allied bombers to fly through undetected.
Bam, got him. Got him. Shooting into 61. Engaging a target. Heading 120.
The coming weeks provided the Apaches a wealth of targets. They skimmed the desert floor at incredible speeds, night vision guiding them through the dark maze of battle to destroy scores of Iraqi targets. Smoldering cinders of enemy bunkers and trucks provided grim proof of the lethality of the gunship's rockets and cannon fire. But most Apache pilots prefer the anonymity that comes with distance, a luxury that the Hellfire provides.
Is we'll have to pop up, find the target, get a range to it, come back down. Shoot the missile will fly a pre-programmed trajectory over the hill, and we'll have a time of flight countdown. And as long as we pop up and we squeeze laser on the target for the last 8 seconds of flight, we'll be able to kill it.
Countless Iraqi tanks met their end without a clue of what hit them or where it came from. Though the Apache was successful in the open desert, the ideal battlefield for these pilots would provide a few more places to hide.
I was out in Saudi, you have nothing to hide behind. You feel like you're naked, basically. What we have is our standoff, with the Hellfire, we can stand off approximately 8 kilometers from the enemy. But that in itself, at times, if weather conditions are bad enough where you have to scoot in closer to the enemy, you tend to feel naked because you have nothing to hide behind. I would prefer to have hills, vegetation that I could put this aircraft behind and pop up, scan the battlefield, and I can videotape the battlefield, return to my mask, my safety, review my tape, and then prioritize my targets at that point, and then launch my Hellfire.
The future of the Apache has arrived in a variant called the longbow. The longbow looks just like a regular Apache, except for a knob on top of the main propeller mast. That knob contains millimeter wave radar, which enables the gunner to guide up to 16 missiles at a time. The radar is mounted high, allowing the helicopter to stay hidden while scanning the battlefield.
With the longbow and the radar fire control, as long as the radar is exposed, it can find the targets and classify the targets and prioritize the targets, all without having to be exposed to the enemy. And they can shoot their radar-guided missiles, and they can get all the missiles going to a different target at one time.
The modernization program will give the Apache more powerful engines, air-to-air missiles, and a global positioning system for pinpoint navigation. Eventually, every Apache in the fleet will be upgraded to a longbow. As this new branch on the helicopter family tree continues to grow, no one knows which direction it will stretch. The only certainty is this: no enemy tank in the world today can ever feel safe with the Apaches on the prowl.